Good morning, it's 9 a.m., Monday, December 19, 2022. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action to approve claims dated December 19, 2022 in the amount of $373,120.76.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is items with Planning and Zoning Administrator Eric Furness. Morning, Eric.
Morning.
First is discussion and possible action to adopt an updated fee schedule for the Muscatine County Building, Zoning, and Environmental Office, effective immediately. What do you got, Eric?
Well, I know you took a look at this and tabled it from last week. I apologize for not being able to be here. We had looked at our fee schedule, and there was just a couple items that I wanted to propose some changes to that would bring some consistency. I highlighted those on the proposed fee schedule, and then also in a little memo. For years, our residential HVAC, single HVAC fee was $40. I'm just proposing raising that to $50. That will bring it in line with what is typically our single inspection fee. If there's any kind of project that's just a one-trip inspection, it's $50. Rewiring additional wiring was $30, same thing. If it's just a one, that'll bring it in line with any permit that would require just a single inspection to $50. Same thing for new 100 amp or 200 amp electric service panel installation from 40 to 50. Same thing with permit extension fees. So any single trip inspection would all be just $50 now. The other ones that are something new, we had just updated the fee schedule about a year ago. In the last calendar year, we've seen a real increase in like whole house generator installations and residential solar arrays going in. Those were something that we dealt with fairly infrequently. What we found is both those types of projects involve a considerable amount of front-end plan review work. A lot of questions have to be asked with the contractors. It's involving a minimum of 2 inspections when we go out to do a generator. There's usually the installation of the generator, and then there's typically, that's done by one company, and then there's an electrician that comes back and does the tie-in. There's gas lines often that have to be run to supply the generator. So I'm proposing $150 to pay for the plan review and 2 trips. On the residential solar, this is something that has really taken off and was not something that we had dealt with. And I have Cody and Brandon here to answer any technical questions. They're my electrical inspectors, combination inspectors. Both of them have considerably more knowledge in electrical than I do. So what we're finding on the solar arrays, a lot of out-of-state companies come in and are trying to throw these things up, and then we deal with a local electrician that does the tie-in and some of the upgrades necessary. We're seeing a lot of issues. Both of them are at a minimum of a 2 inspection project anyway. The panels go in the ground. These are fully engineered typically by some engineer in another state as far as the piers that go in the ground depending on soil type. We get the application turned in, and there's always a lot of questions. We have to go back and forth with the contractor. How are you going to do this? What types of components are going to be involved to meet the requirements of the code? A lot of having to get information from them. And then, again, 2 inspections. There's a lot of safety factors involved in these solar arrays. If you think about it, these are power generating stations, particularly fairly high voltage. And there's considerable safety concerns if it's not done correctly. If the wiring is not protected, because they're not always run in conduit, they're somewhat of a plug and play, and then there's some custom hard wiring on site, there's protection that the code requires, and then the technical point where it ties into the panel and the grid that has to be looked at. If it's not done right, it's a potentially very dangerous component on the property. And these are not fenced in like commercial solar fields. We have to protect the homeowners, neighborhood kids, and that type of thing. So there's a lot that goes into, and the guys are working on a checklist of things from the code that they have to look at on each one of these. And it's now, 2 or 3 pages of different items, I'd say, that we have to go through and check and look at all these connections and wiring support and that type of thing. So we try very hard to stay with the board mandated theory that this is not a revenue-based fee schedule, but just to try to, at a minimum, accurately cover our staff time, travel that's involved. And we feel that this is, the proposed $200 on the residential solar is just that, really just covering staff time.
How many days would you say you've been getting? Just
Oh, in the last year, we've probably done 12 or 15, just, what'd you say in the last?
We're looking at 1 or 2 a week.
Yeah.
Solar or?
Solar. With the solar, we've done a fair number, I don't have all those numbers exactly, I can certainly get those, but we're doing 1 to 2 solar a week. most recently.
Some of my questions on those, I didn't understand the plan review pieces of them, but on the solar, do you distinguish between ground installed or roof applied?
Well, on the roof applied, you know, we don't have to deal with footings, but we still.
But you have load to work on.
We have to look, have they, on an older house, has someone taken into consideration the additional, live load on the roof? And then, you know, if we have some concerns, we'll work with them on that. But certainly the ground mounted ones, there's the soil bearing, we have to look at the footings before everything goes in and as part of it, and,
So if they do propose like a roof, I'm assuming most of them have been ground installed, but if they do a roof, do you require some kind of a architect stamp or anything on the load calcs?
Yeah, so generally on a roof mounted system, it'll have some kind of an engineered stamp drawing or letter accompanying it, says that they've analyzed the truss system and that it is adequate to hold them. So we're just checking to see that they've mounted it correctly. On the roof mount ones, we see less problems than we do with the ground mount systems. Roof mounts, what we'll see a lot of times is wires draping down, hanging on the abrasive shingles, so the wind will sit there and move them back and forth, but it's just, it's a different, they're a different approach to the inspection, when one we gotta climb up on the roof and one we're just looking at it on the ground, but yeah, we see less problems with the roof mount systems than we do with the ground mount systems. It's a lot of it's protection of the ground mount systems that we're seeing problems with.
because if you've seen some of these ground mount ones, typically the lower end of the panel is right there at child height. And they'll have a number of panels connected in series depending on how big of array they've purchased. And the wiring, you know, each array can plug into the next one, and we found them where they're drooped down, and these are fairly high voltage at this point, right? Where kids can access them if they're not
And they
properly
look like
pulled up.
perfect monkey bars.
Yeah.
Like, they do, I mean, they look like.
So they are something that our staff is, you know, investing significant time to make sure it's being done correctly and safely. And we've had to go back, like I said, I hate to equate them to storm chasers, but that's almost the feeling with some of these out-of-town contract. They're selling their product over the phone or over the internet, and they come in and they wanna slap them up. These are not necessarily even electricians that are doing the install, these are minimum wage workers that are putting them in there just following directions, and it sometimes leaves a lot to be desired, so we feel like we have to, you know, oversee their work, and the local electricians typically aren't involved in the panel, they're doing the tie-in, so that's not even their, you know, our local electricians are very good, for the most part, conscientious contractors that do a good job, but it's the in-between stuff from some of these out-of-state contractors.
Yeah, I've seen those, measure my roof and get a quote kind of things, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a real good idea.
And we're trying to spearhead this from the beginning to communicate with our contractors of what our expectations and our standards are right from the beginning. And, that takes a little bit of time,
Yeah.
communicating back and forth before they even come down and start the construction itself.
And it works about 50% of the time.
Yeah. Sometimes it goes in one ear and right out the other, so.
What's the percentage of, roof mount as opposed to ground mount, these boats?
We're seeing more of the, like, I would say in the last calendar year, it was probably 75% roof mounts to 25 ground mount. Now we're, in the last 3 months, I'd say probably 50-50. You can get more panels on the ground mount systems.
Sure.
They put in a bigger system, put a little bit back more on the grid, makes them.
Yeah, yeah, my thought on it is, that they would look at that roof mounting system if that's the most available square footage they have to work with possibly.
Sure, and that's generally where I think the suppliers try to push them, is towards a roof mounted system, just to maximize their space, they're not taking up yard space and things like that. That seems to be the way that they try to go with it,
Sure.
maximize the space without.
So the
taking up
supplier's
space.
gonna push whatever they make the most money at,
Sure enough.
so.
wants.
Just saying.
Another thing to consider is that our residents are spending a considerable amount of investment on these arrays. And we would like to kind of help protect that investment for our residents, you know, to ensure that if they purchased a 25-year solar array and they're expecting that investment to bring them to that 25 years, we want to make sure that they, you know, they're going the best route to do that.
Yeah, gotta get off on the right foot, don't they?
Yeah, and the protections that some of these outfits are putting up, just don't, it's not gonna last 25 years. There's no way.
For example,
It's not gonna last 1 hour.
One of the recent egregious violations that they came across was a ground mount solar, where you're supposed to have some sort of physical barrier between all the wires that run on the bottom side. That can be, you can run it in some sort of conduit, you can put some sort of physical barrier around it. This contractor tied the wires up with zip ties that aren't going to last a few years in the cold.
Well, it'll
and
be
sun.
one season.
And then physically protected it with bird netting that was just, you know, I mean, that's the kind of stuff
You
we're
can
seeing that we.
physically reach through, grab the wires through the netting, and you can pull them down.
And a lot of times when we get called for the inspection, the out-of-state contractor's done, they're not even on site anymore, and then the guys come back with a list of violations, and then it's been like pulling teeth, you know, to get them back, cause this, again, this wasn't the work of the local electrician, he's just at the panel doing the tie-in. And so there's just, and I think it's gonna stay that way. Again, we're working on local, submittal sheets that come in with their permit application to try to get them thinking about the things we're gonna be looking for. Check the boxes, how are you gonna do this, what is your method of protection, what is your method of strapping? Is it gonna require a service upgrade at times, so, you know, but still, we're turning a large ship around with some of these contractors, and it does take significant time.
Okay.
Do we have any, so one, I appreciate all the work you're doing, I know that it's a lot of work, but I know when we passed the solar array systems that we were talking about it was a couple years back that we did with it, I don't know which one you started with. We had a lot of discussion about, going back in and looking how we were gonna salvage some of those things, and then kind of the whole, hey, after 25 years, how we're gonna bring it back to normal. On these solar panels, I mean, are we doing anything for the recycling, or is there any discussions long-term? Has that ever been even thought?
Well, we don't
about?
have
Because-
anything in our code that requires any kind of.
Cause I mean, that's just
recycling
gonna
or
land in the
percentage of
landfill.
Reclamation, again, you know, when you look at that, yeah, it's a good idea, but if we were to mandate something like that, is it gonna raise the price of the project on the, you know?
I just, there's a lot of heavy metals, different things like that that we're
Well, solar
dealing
panels
with
are
right now.
definitely recyclable. I mean,
Yeah, but the cost to recycle those are not,
yeah, it's
not
you
cheap.
have to get them sent off, shipped off somewhere.
yeah, but I mean, and that's the thing, so if they don't do that, where do they go? They go to landfill, right? And so then we're in charge of the landfill, and now we're dealing with high metals that we're seeing, and so then I'm like, is there something that we can do to try to think about that 20 years from now, so we're not dealing with that?
Yeah, cause the only thing our code addresses is utility
But we-
scale, right?
But we did talk about that when we had a major contractor. What I'm saying is, there's nothing in there when we start saying, hey, now we have 30% of the county with solar panels, where's that gonna go? I mean, now you're talking major concerns long-term for the landfill, and then we're the ones dealing with the DNR.
Right, the only thing that, and it wouldn't even be a local mandate, I'm sure there is, you know, DNR and EPA guidelines on proper disposal of those components, but yes.
But I mean, if we had a
they're gonna be
permit
recycled.
that said, hey, once you get rid of this, this is where it has to go, and I'm part of that as part of this permit, then they're kind of held a little bit liable, not so much, I don't know, I'm
It
thinking
might be
long-term.
something, it might be just for an information purpose in our permitting process. I mean, I'm sure electrical code doesn't address it, and we're doing this all under electrical code.
Right, just under the NEC.
But it might be good to put an information flyer with people to understand that when they take on one of these
All
assets.
that goes back
that
into our
they have-
drinking waters. I mean,
they
there's a
have-
ton
they
of
have-
different things that you start rolling in
There
and
are-
be challenged with.
Yeah, best practices for recycling.
He's exactly right. California did this about 25 years ago, and the problem they're having now is they've got to get rid of these, and they've got so many heavy metals that they go to landfills, then you risk contaminating the groundwater, so it's something that probably needs to be considered and taken care of.
Just something to think about long-term. I think the cost for what you guys are doing is perfectly doable, but I think when we talk about, you're putting all these things up front about, hey, make sure we do all these checks. I think it would be good either to put that up front, like, how are you gonna manage this when we recycle this? Or they may not think about it, cause they're
Sure.
thinking 20 years down the
Well,
road.
that's simple enough to put a,
But when you think about the newer technologies, the newer solar panels, they may say, hey, you know what, we can replace that solar for a higher efficiency, just throw that old one away. Well, where's that old one go? You know, and so I just think that that'd be something to think about when we look at some of these permits and some of those discussions. Because yeah, they're recyclable, but they're not cost effective.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
well, obviously, that's a, you know, a policy decision, we can talk some more about it, and upon your direction, we could implement whatever you would decide on that, but for now, we can certainly put a paragraph with an asterisk encouraging the proper recycling of them, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, I think that's just a good idea.
And it looks like it may be subject to federal law as
Could be.
well. And some
And I would
states
make
have
sure
done their
people
own.
that are taking that responsibility on, understand the responsibilities they're taking on when they buy these, cause they're probably not told that in the sales process.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was a cost effective way to recycle it, yeah, that would be fine. But I think long term, we start looking at the amount of metals and silver and all that other, I mean, there's not anything salvageable. It's literally cost prohibitive for somebody to say, hey, it's not like an aluminum can or something that you can make money on it. You're not. You're losing money on it.
I hope we don't start finding them in our county ditches, like, you know, like, well, air conditioners or refrigerators occasionally that we do, you know, that, we don't regulate how people dispose of regulated appliances when they replace their furnace or their refrigerator or freezer. But it's of similar concern, there's state and federal guidelines on how to do that, but we.
Well, yeah, either that or you can contract it or require it to the installer or something. I don't know. There's probably some things to be discussed about, but I think that's just have some thoughts about your team looking at that or thinking about that for the long term. I think that's just better for the whole county overall.
I think ultimately, we're gonna see something on the federal level, before too long. Handle them a lot like batteries do, they have a core attached to them, so you can recoup a little bit of that cost, you know, when you recycle. Cause the batteries are a lot of the same way, there's a lot of heavy metals in batteries that we like to reclaim after their lifespan is finished.
It's just something that maybe to discuss, even maybe with whoever's on the landfill committee, that might be something to see if there's a way that you can talk to them and say, cause right now they have a certain date, you can go in there and drop stuff off there and kind of, hey, this is obviously, you know, gonna cost a little bit for recycling, but at the same time, it's better to be more proactive than reactive with the DNR.
Well, you can feel that what's coming, right? That there are issues with recycling them. So then the folks that take trash will put restrictions on them and charge costs or whatever. And then Keith's gonna gain, or Brian, I guess, will get a lot of them in his ditches, because they aren't gonna wanna spend that extra $5 that they're gonna charge them to take care of them properly.
We're just.
So I think we need to get ahead of that before it becomes a problem. And I just think people need to be aware of the responsibilities they're taking upon themselves when they commit to these systems. It's not just the tax credits and the install cost and the.
Well, we can start thinking about that.
All right,
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the new updated fee schedule.
I'll second.
motion by Santos, second by Jeff, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Was there anything other, Eric, is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Next is items with County Engineer Brian Horowski. Brian, how are you?
Very good.
Discussion of possible action to approve various utility permits.
Alrighty, we have one utility permit today. It's from Alliant Energy of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. They're requesting to run an overhead electrical service across Bancroft Ave for a future house at 1022.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I got a motion by Santos,
Second.
second by Jeff, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Anything other, Brian?
Yeah, I did want to speak a little bit to the potential weather we might get later on this week. Looks like there's some chances for considerable amount of snow, followed by some nasty winds and some nasty cold temperatures. So just wanted to kind of speak a little bit to our winter maintenance policy, snow removal, and just remind everyone that we don't run 24/7. We usually run about typical typical normal work hours. We might start a little earlier, go a little later. You know, that's due to mostly, you know, our budget and our workforce. You know, we don't have the capabilities to run 24/7. I also wanted to speak to if the forecast hold true and it's going to be some snow followed by some very serious winds, like they're calling for 25 to 35 mile an hour wind with, you know, considerably higher gusts. You know, that might be a situation where we might have to pull guys off just due to visibility. So I'm not trying by any means to lower expectations. I just, you know, we gotta watch out for our guys, and you know, if it's not safe for them to be out there, it's not safe.
I just thank you, and I encourage everybody out there who encounters adverse road conditions to drive safely and accordingly.
Yes,
I mean-
that's a lot of it.
You guys can only do what you can do.
Yeah, this is an unfortunate situation that we have because it doesn't give a warm-up snowfall for
No.
the driving for the community, shall I say. And that sounds like the first one's gonna be kind of a barn burner, so.
Very true.
People are gonna have to really pay attention, get where you need to be, and stay there.
And luckily, we're sitting very good on materials. We're also sitting good on equipment, so we're going into it pretty good. Besides, you know, like you said, the first one's gonna be could potentially be a major one.
Doozy.
So
Yeah, for sure.
The wind's whipping and the snow's blowing, you're not accomplishing anything by being out there.
and, you know, there's a lot of tactics to that too. You know, if there's high winds, you know, we might stop putting down material early. If you put down material, or you know, we don't do brine, but one of the major downfalls of brine is if it's cold and windy, you're making more ice than you're taking away. So.
As cold as it's gonna be, it sounds like that snow is gonna be dry, and it's gonna have a lot of movement to it.
So I just want to speak briefly to that.
So Brian,
Appreciate it, man.
normally when you do that, in a situation like what's coming about, you would normally allow the snow to kind of, if there's a big storm, let the storm pass, and then you get the guys out once that passes, is that, or do you tend to normally kind of go through the storm sometimes? Or it's
We
just-
will go through the storm typically.
Okay.
Every storm's different. You know, I would equate snow removal on county roads to, it's very similar to maintaining a gravel rock road. It's more of an art than it is a science. And every storm's a little different. You know, like this one, if it does turn out the way they're forecasted, we might have to wait for it to quit blowing. You know, we're pretty fortunate right now is all of our ditches are empty. You know, so there's a lot of snow storage out there, which might help us out a lot. But if they get filled up, then the next one to come with a lot of wind, the only place that's left is the road. So.
Well, those guys get paid to be 50-50 right and wrong, so I hope the meteorologists are wrong.
There you go. All right.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Next is discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the December 12th, 2022 regular meeting.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Correspondence, Jeff, you have anything?
Nothing to know.
Nathan?
I know it should be under correspondence or meetings, but several of us went to that, not the hearing, but the presentation, the open house that Santos had and others on 3D printing of homes in Muscatine. It was very fascinating. What day was that? Was that Tuesday?
Yeah,
Tuesday, the 13th. That was a great presentation.
Okay. I had nothing to note. Santos?
So I had a email from the sheriff in regards to some questions in regards to what we had for county roads to be closed down for the ATVs and UTVs, and then we also had a feedback from Jim on that. I don't know where Jim went to, but so hopefully we can get some potential discussion on that long term in regards
Yeah, I
to
think
that.
I forgot about that. I wonder if we should consider putting that on an agenda. I don't know, I mean, it appears that there's probably stuff in our ordinance that would need to be addressed to update it for the law. We've got
Yeah.
more clarity, and so maybe that's something I know we've got a pretty
January,
busy
yeah.
January, early January, but maybe late January, early February. We can put that up for discussion and
Yeah, I think that's
see if there's changes that we need to, the board would
I think
desire
that's
to
smart.
make.
If we do that, I still think it'd be critical that we have input from the county engineer in regards to that. I think that was what we had in regards to what we passed before, that we still look at the long-term safety of those that are on those roads, and then the traffic counts, which is critical from my perspective of why we selected those roads in the first place.
And it might be worthwhile in our next joint everything meeting with the school board and the city to, I know the city has talked about or done something to throw that on that agenda, see if, 'cause I'd rather see something coordinated than where you have to change your equipment or your process right as soon as you hit the city line, so.
Yeah, and I haven't seen,
Well, they passed theirs. I don't
they
know.
passed an ordinance, but I haven't seen it. We
Yeah.
probably
I
should
know,
take
I
that
think
out.
they duplicated some of the stuff we had, but I don't know how they line
Even if
up.
it's just an information item, I think that'd be great.
I think it'd be good. Jim's all over some of those discussions,
Yep.
and so we can assign that to Jim, even though he's not here.
Well, that's why we'll say
That's what I was planning on doing
Let's load
already,
man
so.
up.
He'll like that.
I'll teach him.
So I had that, and then we had a presentation on the 13th on 3D housing, which I'm happy to see that working with MCSA and with the Community Foundation, with the city, with Iowa State and MCC on a 3D housing program that we're going to be helping bring to Muscatine. It'll be the first in the state of Iowa, which is in Muscatine as well too. Which I think really puts us on the map in regards to 3D housing. It's an exciting project that I think long term will eventually be bringing even more projects and even more housing. We are working with Iowa State in regards to trying to help develop learning efficiencies, learning on programs on how it operates. Some of the things that we are working on is energy efficiencies. We will have some programs that are going to be helping also look at how the code needs to be updated and ordinances that would be then provided, so then the city and the county can basically say, hey, this is how this needs to be done. So we're working with IEDA in regards to that as well too, to keep sure that we're doing this. We're believing that we should be able to have those housing projects done. Some of them, again, with what the county provided for the revitalization in the downtown Muscatine. 6 of those homes are going to go into that area, so they're going to be right here in downtown. There's going to be probably 2 different types of 3Ds that we're looking at. One of them is going to be like the robotic arm, which is going to be able to do like infield lots, like what we're doing there. And then we're going to have actually like a crane one that actually goes out and does like the actual just the brownfield lots. There's so many exciting things that I look at it knowing that what they're working on, trying to help reduce cost, kind of reduce the carbon footprint as well too. So they're basically like a carbon neutral or even a positive if we're able to look at how we can maybe even mix the concrete with some sort of like recycling materials, things like that we're having discussions in long term that would end up really being a positive for the state and would hopefully get us funding for even bigger projects. This program is also going to be connected with MCC, and MCC is going to be providing a 8-week curriculum, and they're looking at bringing in hemp mixed into the concrete, which is also kind of a unique system, and they're getting funded for a 10-foot, I believe, 3D printer, so they can practice and eventually learn how to do that actual system. So it's exciting for me. I'm going to try to continue to do that. Even though I will no longer be a board member here, but I think it is something that I'm still very passionate about and want to continue to try to help find housing and projects like this that I think are beneficial for the city and the county. So that's what I had for correspondence.
All right, thank you. Doug? Nothing to know? Okay. Committee reports. Jeff, do you have anything?
Yeah, on the 12/15, we had the Region 9 Transportation Policy Committee up in Davenport. And then on the 16th, Scott and I met with the members of the Mississippi Valley Workforce Authority. They have a request for Muscatine County considering taking over sub-recipient duties for the region. We tried to learn a little more about that, and I think that they went back to do some more homework. Things are changing in the rules since they originally requested the meeting until now, so I don't even know if they know what they are asking for. We don't know what they're asking for completely, but it sounds like a typical federal situation. We're currently the employer of record for a couple of people, and apparently that is maybe gonna be a problem going forward, so. We'll see. That was
Okay.
it.
Nathan?
I did not have anything else.
I had as well on Thursday the 15th, the Region 9 Policy Committee, as well as Friday the 16th on the workforce meeting. And that's all I had. Santos?
I had a trails meeting, and we talked a lot about some of the long-term county trails that we had, some of the updating that we're needing to be doing on that. I also shared with them the basically the request for them to be able to be part of the American Discovery Trails that I've been able to get with, and have the trails for the city and county team to be able to hopefully require to be members of that, which again, in long term, well, if that gets federally approved, we would be able to encourage that trail to go through Muscatine County, which I think would be a good long-term tourism type of attraction for our community. I also had one more thing I forgot to mention. I did go attend an early childhood meeting last week as well on Thursday.
Santos,
Not a
what day was the trails meeting?
The Tuesday the 13th. And on Thursday was the 15th for the early childhood over at MCC.
Okay. Doug, did you have anything?
Thursday, the 15th, I had Fair Board.
Okay.
And that's the only meetings I had this week.
All right, very good, thank you. Next is items with the administration office. First is discussion and possible action to approve resolution 12-19-22-01, 2022 utility values payable FY 23-24.
If you have any questions, I'm gonna let Tybee answer them.
Yeah, this is something that's in the code that should be certified each year, so that it lands in the minutes. The values come from the Department of Revenue. As you can see with the resolution, the values are listed there, as well as assessed valuation, taxable valuation, and for the pipeline, the railroad companies, the rate and the miles is also listed, and they have a rollback, where the other, for electric, gas line and pipeline, their taxable value is the same as, it does not have a rollback. Taxable value is the valuation. So it's asked to be approved so that it can be in the minutes and certified for,
I'll move the approval.
thank you.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nathan. This is a roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
I vote aye. Santos?
Aye.
And Doug?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action to approve resolution 12-19-22-02, encumbering American Rescue Plan Act funds.
This is related to the discussion that you had last week about committing funds towards the indoor sports complex.
Can we attach a rider that none of the games played therein will end in a tie?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I've got a motion by Santos, a second by Jeff. This is a roll call vote as well. Jeff?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
I vote aye. Santos?
Aye.
And Doug?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is action to set a public hearing for Monday, January 9, 2023 at 9 a.m. on a request from Community Grant Foundation of Greater Muscatine for ongoing unbudgeted expenditures for a community grant writer position.
So this is basically, we had spent the 9, we allocated 25, and is just to bring that back up to normal?
Right,
so
this
they
would,
pay their
this would
13
address any funds that they want us to spend between now and June 30th.
Of the original, but it's still
the
capped by
original
the
25.
25,000 that we originally.
It's not, no, it's not capped by, that 25,000 is said and done. That was through November 1st, and it wasn't expended by November 1st.
Correct.
So what I told Charlotte to do was give us what she's requesting in funding for the rest of the current fiscal year. And along with that, we want an agreement like we had before, dated from that November 1st when the other one expired through June 30th. And then she's coming in as part of our 23-24 budget process. She'll come in with a request for the next fiscal
So
year.
is her request for the next, whatever these months are, is it more than the 13,000 we had originally contemplated?
We're not sure. We got some information from her on Friday and it wasn't clear exactly what she was asking for, so Kayla reached out to her for clarification about exactly
Okay, so
what.
we're just setting a public
It looks,
hearing.
it looks like it's probably gonna be more than the 25,000 minus 9 that we had designated before. It looks like looks like probably asking for about another 25, I believe, on top of the 9 we already spent.
Okay. All right, so this is for the public hearing. We'll
Yep.
have that
Right.
cleared up.
Yeah,
by
we'll
then.
have all that information by then.
So I'll move the approval.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. Anything other, Nancy?
I do not have anything else other than to remind you that this is the last board meeting of this fiscal year, or of this calendar year. Our first meeting in January will be the 3rd, which is a Tuesday, but Monday is a holiday for us.
Right.
And then we have the swearing in is,
The swearing in is the 29th at 8 AM over at the courthouse.
okay.
And that's December 29th.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next is receive information from county employees. Do I have any county employees?
Going back to the ATV, UTV issue, Nathan, you'd made a comment about, presenting to a joint.
I don't know, but presenting, just getting on the same page.
Okay, do you know when that would be?
I'm not sure. They're quarterly, aren't they?
Well, we've had some trouble trying to schedule the next one. It looks like it's probably gonna be pushed out to March, just because of the city's schedule and the school schedule.
Yeah, with the budgeting too. Yeah.
So,
Plenty of time.
yeah,
I just want to be able to give her a call back.
You
and let
bet.
her know.
Appreciate it.
yeah, if we can get everybody on the same page and have the same rules and regulations, that will work the best, I'm sure. Do I have any other county employees that wish to address the board at this time? Seeing no one. Receive comments from the public. Do I have anyone from the public that would like to address the board this time on any issue? Not seeing anyone come forward. I do have one other thing that I would like to bring forward, and that is, we have 2 board members that this is their last meeting. And Santos Lucido, like to recognize him as well as Doug Holliday for their service to the county and their service to the board, and the good job that they have done in these past 4 years. And I just wanted to thank them for their efforts to the county and all the work they've done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have one other individual, Keith White. After 24 years of service as the county engineer, I wanted to recognize Keith as well, and with a plaque for his years of service to the county. And I would just like to say that he's done an incredibly good job of managing that department of his, and the board certainly appreciates all the work that he's done for the county. Thank you very much, Keith. And with nothing else to come before the board, it is 9:38, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.